Hi everyone, I'm Cal Shepherd, the Data Jiu-Jitsu guy. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about starting a career in data. I'm going to aim to keep this as simple as possible, and this video is aimed at people either wanting to start a career in data or people who are looking to gain some data skills that can help them within their existing career. Even if your current job role isn't data related, most jobs require some interaction with data, and I believe that learning data skills can offer a competitive advantage in your current role. I'm going to discuss the most common job roles in data. It's also worth pointing out that the data roles I mention will not be a full list of all the roles available, but the most generic and common roles that you will see. Each one of the roles that I talk about can mean slightly different things at different organizations, and there are roles that can be a subset of a particular discipline.
So the agenda for today, I'm going to take you through the different data roles. I'll also take you through the technical skills, as well as point you at some technical resources that you can use. And then finally, we'll finish with a summary. So first of all, the data roles. So the three most common roles that you'll generally see in data are data engineer, data scientist, and data analyst, which I'll take you through. Um, I've used the website Coursera.org to gather some of these descriptions of what the different roles do. It's also worth pointing out that um, most people that do one of these roles will probably have a little bit of crossover with the other roles as well, and they won't strictly just do what this definition says. So first of all, data engineers. Data engineers work in a variety of settings to build systems that collect, manage, and convert raw data into usable information for data scientists and data analysts to interpret. Their goal is to make data accessible so that organizations can use it to evaluate and optimize their performance. And data scientists. Data scientists determine the questions their team should be asking and figure out how to answer those questions using data. They often develop predictive models for theorizing and forecasting. A data scientist might do the following tasks on a day-to-day basis. 1. Find patterns and trends in data sets to uncover insights. 2. Create algorithms and data models to forecast outcomes. 3. Use machine learning techniques to improve the quality of data or product offerings. And 4. Communicate recommendations to other teams and senior staff. And finally, a data analyst. A data analyst is a person whose job is to gather and interpret data in order to solve a specific problem. The role includes plenty of time spent with data, but entails communicating findings too. A data analyst will often be responsible for creating dashboards or reports to communicate KPIs using visualizations and charts. And what I mean by KPIs there is key performance indicators. A data analyst may also be responsible for performing ad hoc analysis and then presenting the findings to interested parties. So just to give you a visual representation of where those roles sit, as you can see, this diagram that I'm showing here, you might not be familiar with it, but this is essentially a data lakehouse diagram. And a data engineer, which is sat up at the top here, their responsibility is to gather all the batch and streaming data and build the different data pipelines to ensure that the data goes from bronze all the way through into gold. And then from there, the data analyst can create different BI solutions. So that could be dashboards, or it could also be just some ad hoc analysis. And then below that, you've got the data scientist doing some sort of machine learning on top of this data. So a good way to think about it is that a data engineer essentially provides the environment for the data analyst and the data scientist to be able to create their solutions. I've also included, because you might notice, I'm a data architect myself. A data architect tends to almost get involved with not in as much detail as either of these three roles, but they tend to oversee a lot of this and will tend to have a good high level understanding of all areas. So the technical skills and resources. So just first of all, some generic data skills that that anyone can potentially learn, as well as all three of the roles that we're going to talk about in more detail. But first of all, I've put SQL, and as you can see, I've put a crown next to that one, because I think this one, SQL, is probably the most important data skill to have, I would say. And also, it is easy to learn. It's very difficult to master, but it is easy to learn how to do very basic things within SQL. Python is also another very important skill for people within data to learn. I've put dashboarding tool, which is very generic, but that's things like Power BI, ThoughtSpot, and Tableau. I think even if you don't work in data, having an understanding of how to use one of these tools will probably be very useful for your career. I've also put down Excel, which might be a bit controversial for some people, but I think having an understanding of Excel and how data works within Excel is often quite a good introduction into data. And then, if you understand Excel well enough, you might be able to progress into something like SQL, Python, or one of the dashboarding tools that we've talked about. I think also having a good understanding of relational databases and how they operate is good for anyone looking to learn more about data, as well as understanding what data warehouses, data lakes, and data lakehouses are. If you need more information on that topic, I've done a series on that, which you can find on my channel as well. And then finally, it's quite generic this, but I've put data modeling, and I've pointed to a particular course at sqlbi.com. I think data modeling can quite often be an overlooked skill within this area, and if you get an understanding of data modeling, that can definitely give you a competitive advantage. So now I'm going to go into the specific skills required for each of the roles I've talked about. I've split this down into what you must have, should have, and also could have. Just to point out, these are very generic. It might be different at certain places, but I've tried to cover as much as I can in here. So data engineers, I think the most important skills and what you must have are SQL and Python. They're two really, really important skills. Also, understanding Spark is very important because that's how most of your data pipelines and ETL and ELT jobs will be built. Having an understanding of data warehousing, lakes and lake houses is also extremely important. Data modeling, which just briefly mentioned. I've also put ETL or ELT tools. I've also put cloud on here, which might sound a bit generic, but I think most data engineer roles now, I'd say like the vast majority are all going to be cloud-based. So you need to have an understanding of how to work within the cloud. Another thing I've put on the should side of things is some form of BI dashboarding tool. You won't necessarily need to build dashboards, but having an understanding of this will be very useful. And I've also put machine learning as well because you don't have to know how to do machine learning, but have an appreciation for that will be very useful because you will spend a lot of time working with data scientists. And then finally, things that you could have, I've put Terraform, which is a infrastructure as code platform, and I've put Scala, Java, and then any other programming languages. Data scientists, again, what they must have is SQL and Python. You could probably argue that Python is probably the most important for a data scientist, although I would still fully expect data scientists to be quite well versed in SQL. Machine learning is definitely a must for a data scientist, as well as understanding how to work with data lakes. I've put visualization tools, and I don't specifically mean dashboarding tools here, like Power BI and things like that, but knowing how to visualize data, whether that's within Jupyter notebooks or just within Python or something like that, is definitely very useful. And as a data scientist as well, you need to have a really good grasp of statistics. I've put Jupyter notebooks here, which is probably one of the most common sort of notebook formats that data scientists work with. And what they should have, again, this is very generic, but I've put cloud because quite a lot of people will be working in the cloud these days. Spark, so that they understand that big data processing, and then data warehousing, lake houses, and data modeling. And then finally, what they could have, I've got R, which is it's another data science language, similar to Python in some ways, but I would say Python's probably the most common now. But some companies may use R over Python, and if they do, R might be a must rather than Python. And SAS, which is essentially like a data scientist and a data science and analytics tool. Finally, the data analyst. So skills that a data analyst must have are SQL. Again, you'll notice that SQL has been in every single one of the roles that I've talked about so far. And another one thing that's really important for data analysts is some sort of BI dashboarding tool. They're going to be responsible for building dashboards, so they're going to need to have some skills in this area. I think Excel is quite an important skill for a data analyst as well, because they might have to do, for whatever reason, they may need to do some analysis in Excel, or at the very least, some of the stakeholders they work with will probably work with Excel, so they need to understand how things operate in there. I've also put data modeling, so star schemas, I think are quite important for data analysts to understand, as well as data warehousing. On the should side of things, I've put data lakes and lake houses, as well as statistics and maths, and KPI definitions. And the reason I list this on here is quite often data analysts might need to build KPIs around percentages or variance percentages to previous years and things like that. So we need to have a good grasp on maths. And finally, could. I've put Python and Jupyter notebooks. I wouldn't say this is definitely not a must for data analysts to have, but I think it'd be very useful for some data analysts, and some data analysts are probably very comfortable with Python. I think it can depend on your background or your particular job role. And then just some resources that I think are very useful. SQLBI.com is a great place, particularly if you for Power BI related activities. Advancing Analytics, which has a lot of resources, as well as a really good YouTube channel around data engineering and data science. And then you've got W3 Schools, which gives you some really nice courses on how to learn SQL and Python and things like that. Data Camp, which has a lot of different data related courses. Free Code Camp, I know you can get Python and SQL courses on there. And then Coursera and Udemy, they have lots of different data courses that you could, some are free and some that you have to purchase. And then finally, you've got Databricks, has quite a lot of learning resources as well. And then finally, I just wanted to give you an example of what you can do on W3 Schools, because I think this is sometimes a good place to start for learning things like SQL and Python. And this is just what it does is, as you can see from this particular GIF that I'm showing you here, is that you can very easily work within an environment to learn how to use SQL, and it gives you some step-by-step instructions, which is great. I hope this video gave you a nice simple summary of the different career paths that are available within data, as well as an idea of some of the different technical skills that are required to become successful. As I mentioned at the start, I've tried to keep this very simple and generic, and there are lots of other skills that I haven't mentioned that could be required for certain organizations. I also hope that I've provided some valuable resources for people to use to build on some of the skills we talked about. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this content, then please like and subscribe. And as always, if you've got any questions or comments, then feel free to add them below. Thank you.